Laying Up is again partnered with Omaha Productions and ESPN for an alternate broadcast of the PGA Championship from Valhalla. Thursday and Friday, it's on ESPN 2, 1 to 3. Saturday and Sunday on ESPN Plus, 9 to 11. As part of this, I am honored. I'm thrilled to welcome two valued members of the No Laying Up family, Tron Carter and Kevin Van Valkenburg. What's going on, guys?
Kev, we're doing great. I'm glad you could help me sneak back in the back door at ESPN here. This is kind of like when that Simpsons skit where Mo throws somebody out, Barney out the front and he sneaks in the back. So that's how I feel like right now.
What's going on, Tron?
Nothing, man. We last couple of weeks we've been busy doing a bunch of golf football comps. So I'm excited to kind of fire that back up.
I was thinking I did it with Shane Bacon on the Golf Channel maybe 4 years ago. It was definitely during the pandemic because I was in Florida, and all of them aged really horribly because everything changes so quickly. I think I comped Rory to Aaron Rodgers at one point, and everybody was like, "You nailed it," because it was 2020, and it was like Aaron Rodgers completely viewed differently, Rory was completely viewed differently. I did have Colin Morikawa and Joe Burrow, which I think probably
decent.
for at least for a while aged okay, but it just changed. Like this in a year, maybe in 6 months, this episode will age horribly.
Kevin, it's funny you say the Aaron Rodgers Rory because I did that exact comp. We did this a couple weeks ago, but kind of for different reasons. It was just like both of you guys just need to shut up.
I've also in the interim comped Phil Mickelson with Aaron Rodgers.
Yes, I think that was where we landed.
Yeah.
Ultimately,
Right,
I think that was my pick. Yeah, it was like someone who flashed early, had potentially late, sort of weird. Maybe got way too deep into the internet, extremely online, needed to maybe take a break, touch grass occasionally. So that turned out to be, I think, a good comp.
All right, so we're going to go through it. We're going to broaden this. We're not just going to do quarterbacks or teams, which we did with Andy Johnson last year and Joseph Lamagna. We're just going to do situations because the funniest thing, I think, is when you see the Woj tweet and it says that, so-and-so has signed a 4-year extension. Jamal Murray signed a 4-year extension. All the first tweet is either something about Shams or just saying explain in football terms. And so we're going to do the explain in football terms guide to the PGA Championship. We will start with this. And you can take this anywhere you want. Player, coach, situation, thin slice it, broad slice it, whatever you want to do. Tron Carter, you have the floor. What is the football equivalent of Rory's form and situation going into the PGA Championship right now?
I'm going to have a lot of Patriots stuff to say. I just got Patriots on the brain today, but I think it's essentially, like today is, or I would say this week is Rory going in as Eli into that second Super Bowl that they played against, and Scottie and Scottie's the Patriots. He's coming in, 18-0, 19-0, like, undefeated for the year, and they're going to ruin the perfect season.
I like that.
So, maybe that's wishful thinking, but we'll see. Rory's never crumbled under the pressure of crazy expectations heading into a major before, has he?
Wow. No, that's a great one. I wasn't even thinking about that. KV, what do you got?
All right. Kind of a little bit of a historical throwback for you, Kev.
Oh.
I don't know that it quite works, but I find it intriguing. What if Rory is like Randall Cunningham in 1998? All right. He began his career as like this dynamic, transcendent superstar. Everyone's convinced he's going to be a game changer, turned out to be amazing. Then all of a sudden, kind of a lull. Nobody knows what's going on. Almost like, questioning his motivation. Mm-hmm. And then at age 35, which is what Rory is now, what Randall was in 1998, just blowing the doors off of everybody again, making you jump off your couch, pump your fist. Like, I know that maybe you would argue that Randall wasn't quite the best quarterback in 1998. That was probably still Steve Young. But Randall was like dynamic and fun again, almost the MVP. And if you're a Viking fan, you probably know exactly what it's like to have your heart broken like a Rory fan. And so ultimately, I think that fits for me.
Wow. That's a great one. So I had one that's extremely recent, like just 1-to-1 just of last season, just the form part of it right now. Rory is the 2023 Buffalo Bills because they're searching for an identity and they're getting hot at the exact right time. But then you still have to play the big boys. And the fact that you're the hottest team, because every single season, guys, there's a team nobody wants to play. Oh, nobody wants to play this team. Remember a couple of years ago, it was the Jonathan Taylor Colts? Well, who cares? Like, you have to play the big boys because it's really different. So this is more of an expectations thing for me about what happens when everybody starts to play their best. And it's saying Quill Hollow anymore. I'm going with the 2023 Bills. They will play their version of the Chiefs, and they're going to come up just short.
So that makes Harry Diamond potentially Stephon Diggs. Gets rid of his caddy. I've got another one. I think there might be some parallels with like Philadelphia Eagles Michael Vick.
I actually, when you said KV, when you said Cunningham, I thought about Vick.
Yeah, I just figured the age thing was too close for me. I wanted to kind of nail the age comp, but I like Vick. I don't know that Rory had scandal that sort of pulled him away from things. Maybe not that we know of, TC, but who knows what's going on in the echoes of
maybe not
behind
scandal,
doors. Yeah,
but perhaps some things that have been distracting him. Okay. Right, with framework agreement and all that stuff.
I'm going to throw one more out there. KVV, you mentioned Randall Cunningham, superstar to begin his career, in the wilderness a little bit, comes back. The one thing that I think we've forgotten, you mentioned the Patriots, TC, is the decade where Tom Brady just didn't win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Just didn't happen. And he had to reinvent himself, and the team had to reinvent themselves around them, and they had to bend football to their will and all of this stuff. But like, they went a while, and people were saying, oh man, they get to the AFC title game all the time. They get to the wild card game. They just can't get there. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times when we're looking back, it's a more coherent career, obviously. We're saying, of course, Ray, best winner in football. That wasn't the narrative in 2011. That wasn't the narrative in 2012, 13, 14, 15. But people were saying, oh my God, they might not get back to it. And so I think now if Rory could go on a little run here and he's Tom Brady and not any of these guys, not Josh Allen or any of the suckers we're comparing him to.
Kev, I want to throw one thing out for you too. Former chubby guy, got to be super fit, got to be way into fitness. Maybe got out of a relationship that wasn't right for him, and then got married. A lot of things, a lot of parallels there.
Oh, we're cooking now. We're cooking now. I like this. We're just real quick. Expectations for Rory this weekend, Tron.
Oh God. Listen, I have none. I've totally gotten out of the Rory expectations business. I've gone down this road, seemingly 16 out of the last 18 majors, it feels like. So I'm trying to just sit that one out and like, hey, you know what? I'll talk about it on Thursday when in real time, and we'll go from there because it's become a fraught proposition.
KVV, do you have expectations?
It's funny. We've been making jokes lately about how I said that he was going to top 15 at the Masters. It was like it's called the KVV stick your neck out thing. It's like, oh wow, we're really to take a risk there. I actually think Rory's going to contend. I think Scottie is ultimately still going to win, but I think Rory will be there down the stretch.
I liked today on your guys' show where Cody was upset about the lack of hype, and Sally basically said, you've been potting for 3 years, not a decade. So you still haven't been burned. You can still want to hype up Rory McIlroy. We've all been there. And I have football people like that too. All right. Scottie Scheffler's 2024 form is like which football team, player, or coach NFL history, KVV?
All right, TC and I have had a little bit of disagreement on this, but I think I've gotten him to slowly come around.
KVV, it wasn't disagreement. It was just me showing my.
You're such a young lad,
Yeah, my millennial bona fides.
You're not an old head like me.
He's only going to go 80s. He's only going to go 80s references this whole time.
All right, Kev. Scottie Scheffler right now is Joe Montana's 1989 season. All right. People are spoiled about QB play these days. Back in 89, the league average completion percentage was like 55%. Joe Montana completed 70.2% of his passes that year. He also had the lowest INT percentage in the league. That's like Scottie's iron play. And I think that Joe and Scottie have like similar personalities too. They're kind of like wholesome and chummy. Kids don't know, but Joe was that dude back in the day. And in 89, he threw for 428 yards in a game and 458 yards in a game. That's like discovering electricity in the Middle Ages, Kev. Joe and Scottie never seem like they move too fast. They never seem to be frantic. They're just kind of chill and they dominate.
That's pretty good. Tron, I guess you're going more modern?
Yeah, I'm going back to Brady. So I said, Rory's rolling in his Eli to this thing. This is 2007 Tom Brady. Scottie has figured the putter out. Like, he didn't have any elite weaponry prior to 07. Figured the putter out. They acquired Moss, Welker, Dante Stallworth. He threw for 50 TDs. Scottie's got Ted Scott on the bag now. He's got probably some newfound perspective this week.
A lot of perspective, if rumors are
he's
true.
Got a new one, new arrival in the family. He's got the putter worked out. It could be Scottie's opus, only for, again, Eli to come in and steal the show.
Wow. So I have a couple. They're not 1-to-1. I have two quarterbacks from in their form in the beginning of the last decade, the beginning of the passing boom, which KVV you covered well, and we saw numbers that didn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like I was looking before Harbor Town at the data golf stuff, and Scottie Scheffler was the best at everything that needed precision. Like he was 25 feet from the pin on all of his shots. I think from 150 to 175, nobody's even close. Like every single level of iron play, he was the best at. Strokes gained, pretty much everything but putting. He was the best at. And so there's two guys that stand out. One is 2011 Aaron Rodgers
Mm-hmm.
on the 14-1, 15-1. He played obviously the Matt Flynn game, but he was 14-1 that year, and all of his numbers were perfect, like every single thing. And he was taking. It wasn't like, and this is Mahomes has perfected this, but like there's two ways to avoid risk. There's to be perfect and take risks, or just throw 3 yards down the field and run a horizontal offense and all that stuff. Aaron Rodgers took risks and went down the field and was still perfect on it. The other guy like that was Drew Brees. Now it's a little bit different because Drew Brees didn't have the vertical passing game like Rodgers did, but the precision and the efficiency and just like the shot after shot after shot was just perfect. Those are the two guys that stand out. I'm going to go more with 2011 Aaron Rodgers.
Kev, you're making me wonder if like Zach Johnson is like Chad Pennington in like that Jets era when he was like just dinking it 3-4 yards. Like if that was the year Zach won the Masters, if that's an equivalent there.
So there was I did a story on the Wildcat Dolphins a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And there was a play where Pennington had a guy so wide open on a Wildcat like throwback that he missed the guy. He was like 10 yards short. And Pennington's explanation for this was that he had never seen a guy so wide open, so he choked. And the whole time I'm just like, I want to say it, and I'm like, you know what? I just kind of print the legend. I'll just let him live that. I'm gonna let him live that he couldn't get the ball to the guy downfield because he choked. Fine.
That sounds like something like Zach would say, TC. I think.
Truly.
All right, sorry to get us off track there.
No. This is what we're here for. Okay. Is Scottie Scheffler going to win, guys?
I don't think he is. I think it's I don't know. I think there's too many variables this week. There's weather potentially in the forecast. There's Zoysia. I'm not sure I've seen him play. Although there's Zoysia in the DFW area, so maybe he's got a bunch of experience there. But I just think there's too many good dudes out there that and if Scottie does win, then man, the rest of these guys are little boys. And we really need to reevaluate this conversation.
TC, we also don't know if he's been sleeping upright in like one of those hospital chairs. You've had a couple kids. I've had a couple kids. You know how your back is like for a week after that.
I think those hospital chairs are like medieval torture devices.
Yeah.
Those are the least comfortable pieces of furniture ever created.
I have no memory of the first 5 months after my child. Like none. I developed no new memories. Nothing happened. So I don't know if that helps in golf or not. I certainly didn't play golf because it was A, January, and B, in the Northeast, and B, I just didn't have time. I could not imagine doing anything athletic at this point.
And Kevin, that's 5 months. That's not, we're a week here, So, I mean, his head's got to be spinning, right?
Yeah, I don't know how that all translates. All right. Football. What football situation is like Jon Rahm's 2024 right now, TC?
I've got Jim Kelly playing for the Houston Gamblers, the New Jersey Generals. Listen, I know that was before a lot of his success.
Sure.
They're in the NFL, but it just seems like, all right, like what's this guy doing over here? Like get him, get him into the league. Like he's clearly not supposed to be where he's at. He's supposed to be over here, and he's kind of, not thrilled about it, right?
It's funny because the best analogy is actually the soccer players who go over and play in Saudi Arabia at like age 29, and they can still get into a big team like PSG or Man City or whatever, and they're just like, whatever, I'll just go play pressure free, and their form really does take a dip. KV, what do you got?
All right, Kev, I got the 1994 Cowboys. All right, obviously we can't quite replicate the Live PGA Tour divide,
sure,
but here we have like a super successful run before. It was like the Cowboys winning 2 Super Bowls. like Rahm winning 2 majors, but then it gets shaken up by a move that's like totally unexpected. Jerry Jones fires Jimmy Johnson, replaces him with Barry Switzer. Barry Switzer feels like spiritually equivalent to like Liv in general. And I feel like he and Greg Norman would have like a kinship of sorts. So it's not like Rahm sucks now, right? The Cowboys didn't suck in 94, but they were still a threat to win, just like they were, the previous 2 years. But like chemistry is sort of a fragile thing. And the Cowboys, they spent that year kind of aggrieved, kind of whining about everyone was out to get them. They were saying, we're happier than we've ever been, while complaining all the time about the media coverage. And meanwhile, both the Liv and the Cowboys that year had like all these C-list celebrities popping up all these events, like, coming to sing the national anthem, whatever. And it just like, you got Logan Paul here, maybe showing up once in a while. You never know. It just seems like very much equivalent of the same kind of worlds. And they like, ultimately they came up just short, losing the NFC Championship game. I could see Rahm kind of, feeling like he's frustrated and wandering a little bit, coming up a little bit short from winning majors.
So Brian Curtis is a massive Cowboys fan. Will send me clips from that era. I wasn't really around for that. Like I was aware of the Cowboys, but it wasn't like I was watching SportsCenter after every Sunday and every Monday. And the clips they send of just the drama in those, like there was a game, I don't know if it was 94 or 95. No, it was 95 because it won the Super Bowl, where they lost to some random team in the last week of the season. And they were just like, literally just like, we suck. And they were like fighting in the locker room. And they were just like, I don't even know why we're even here anymore. And then they won the Super Bowl like a month later. Yeah. They all just hated each other. It was the most insane environment I've ever seen. I will say, and you know this, KVV, from being around the Cowboys, the C-list stars are still there.
That's true.
They are still there. I went to Cowboys practice a couple years ago, and the main guest on the field was Tommy Lahren, the conservative commenter. And I have no idea why she was
Sounds
there.
Sounds like a live event.
I have no idea why she was there. And then you'd see, this was in the Garrett era, and you'd see like afterwards, I don't know if it was her or some other actors, where it's like they like he had to spend like 20 minutes just like glad handing with CSI actors and stuff like that. And it's like, this is a completely different deal. I'm like, the Cowboys are a completely different deal than any other place. I mean, like, even you walk around that facility, like kind of the live thing, it's not a pro facility. Like, first of all, you have Jerry Jones speaking for everybody, but also like you can just grab anybody you want in the media at any time. Like no one really cares about anything. Jerry Jones sets the agenda. Like it is a completely different world from any of the other 31 buildings. It's not, winning is not prioritized. I think that's the biggest thing, is if they wanted to win, they would change, and they don't want to change.
Also, maybe you have Charles Haley behaving inappropriately, perhaps whipping things out. Who knows what's, I've heard some things about some live gentlemen perhaps doing similar things. So I feel like the comp
last
is
naked
solid.
warrior.
That's right.
Actually, guys, one more here that just kind of spring into mind. Some of it's like Spurrier in DC.
Yeah.
He's working with a maniacal dictator who's wanting to wash and launder his image. And he's really not happy there. Like he wants to be somewhere else. He clearly wants to go back to college, all that stuff.
So I lived in St. Augustine, Florida during the pandemic. And there's a golf club right across from the place we were staying. And it was a private, never tried to join it, but I thought Spurrier played there. And I Googled it, and he did play there. And it was a story from, I believe, the Washington Post in 2002 about how much he golfs instead of coaches. And he talked to the guy the whole time. And he's talking about how lazy he was. And the quote from Spurrier was literally, if you can come up with a good game plan in 2 hours, what's the point of working more than 2 hours? And then, he was like on the range, just like talking to this guy, being like, "Hey man, like I got it, I'm good, so I'm just gonna go hit some balls." So maybe that's the live motto. If you can come up with something in 2 hours, what's the point of working harder?
Yeah, that might be more like the Dustin Johnson strategy with live, though.
I have one. Broncos Sean Payton, because I think that we've forgotten how good Sean Payton was. Truly. We haven't forgotten that with Rahm at all. Sure. But we will. And now it's just kind of like, what's he doing? Is this going to work? Is he into it? That's the biggest thing with Sean Payton last year. Is he into this? Does he really want to do this? Or did he just take a $20 million a year contract from the Walmart family to just kind of talk about culture and then hate all of his players and then win 4 games a year? I don't know. Like, that's the biggest thing. It's like, it's going to work if he's into it and has a quarterback. I don't know if he's going to have either of those two things.
Well, like Rahm having to hang out with, Richard Bland or other guys. It's like Payton having to hang out with Mr. Unlimited.
Well, I feel like TC too. Like, Sean Payton getting rid of Mr. Limited so he could like spend more time with his family. That's like Matt Wolff wanting to spend more time with his dog. Like, he just didn't have any room for the like lack of seriousness.
I'm trying to think of a Matt Wolff comp. Is that Zach Wilson? Matt Wolff is better than Zach Wilson though. But Zach Wilson was at one point good. Like a guy everybody feels totally comfortable teeing off on.
I mean, Matt Wolff was at one point good.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
He was in that tailor-made match at Seminole.
That's right.
That's what
maybe Mac Jones could be up there too. Like, I feel like there's any number of, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett, like at least like Kenny Pickett, Matt Wolff's won before, right? Like he's played really well.
There's a little bit of Daniel Jones where like at some point you just cross the Rubicon and people just tee off on you. Like that video, did you guys see the Kayvon Thibodeau video with The Office? Like where he breaks the fourth wall?
No.
So, oh my God. So I can't believe this. It went vaguely viral, but it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen where he's doing this. Kayvon Thibodeau, the Super Bowl, is doing a Yahoo Q&A, like quick hit stuff. And someone says to the question asker goes, "Who's the quarterback week 1 of the New York Giants?" And Kayvon Thibodeau goes, "Easy, Daniel Jones." And then he just stares right at the camera like Jim Halpert.
And I know I was supposed to say that.
I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you, viewer. You know I had to say that. But he doesn't like crack a smile or anything. He just stares right at the camera. I'll offline it for you guys. It is unbelievable. But like that's the situation that you get into. Why should you bet with Caesars Sportsbook? 2 words: Caesars Rewards. Every bet brings you closer to the types of benefits only Caesars can offer. Hotel stays, VIP experiences, sports and concert tickets, and more. It's not just an app, it's an empire. All right, what football player's rise will resemble Ludvig Aberg? Tron, you're the expert.
Oberg. Good job.
No, I'm not the expert. Yeah, that was far better than I've ever done.
Yeah, we're going with Oberg.
I saw on the PGA pronunciation, it says Oberg. His next 5 years. Tron, you obviously have the floor.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's Sean McVay. That just kind of sure thing and young new star and everybody just wants a piece. I'm hoping it's more Sean McVay than say Justin Herbert or Mike McDaniel, who I fear aren't going to get off because some people say, all right, Ludwig's not that young, right? He's 20. Mm-hmm. I think he just turned 24. So you kind of got to factor that in a little bit, so that goes against the Sean stuff a little bit. So you're hoping that, hey, there are, clearly he was like the second best guy in the field at the Masters. I mean, Scottie was heads and above better than everybody else, but I think Ludwig was far and away better than the next best guy.
Wow, this is max erasure, but whatever.
Wow.
I mean, but I just think, I don't know, like Ludwig's rise and his skill set and just his general demeanor and attitude out there seems to me like, hey, I'm in control here. I know exactly what I'm doing. Success is going to come, and that's how McVay felt for his, still feels, but really from the moment that he got on the scene through, the current situation.
KVV.
I'm gonna go Jordan Love here. All right. The feeling about Ludwig is that he's super young, but actually he's 24 years old. You know who else is 24-year-old? Is our guy Ludvig Aberg. Yeah. Jordan Spieth had won 3 majors by the time he was 24. Okay. So guess what? Spieth might be Andrew Luck, a guy who started with so much promise. The guy thought he was going to sort of be the next dude, but injuries kind of derailed him. He never kind of came quite what we thought. Aberg probably benefited from not turning pro at the 21 or 20, like Spieth did. And now he's kind of sat for a little while. He's kind of figured things out. He's clearly great. And just like Jordan Love, all of a sudden Jordan Love gets to be the starter. Turns out to be slowly over the course of the year, just gets better and better and better. And I feel like now it's in the position to play the absolute best over the next 5 years.
I want to make Tron angry with this one. So I actually thought the first thing that came to mind, because I'm thinking about all the metrics being correct, almost a can't miss as far as the floor goes. I'm thinking pass rusher. So I immediately thought of Myles Garrett. But that, first of all, Myles Garrett, comp. I was surprised.
Just high level traits.
Yeah, high level. You just know he's going to be good at every tournament forever. On every rep, there's just going to be a floor there. He's never going to lose his game, just like Myles Garrett. And then I thought, okay, Myles Garrett had the Mason Rudolph thing. He's also Myles Garrett.
Can't see Ludwig doing that.
Garrett is he's not a he's not a space cadet by any means. It took him a while to get a killer edge that I think Aberg has already. Like I remember I did a Garrett profile and after his rookie year, and his position coach was basically just like, I want Garrett to be meaner. I want if someone takes a cheap shot at him to not take a swing, but like get up in that guy's face. Don't let people take liberties. Like, and I don't think I think a lot of guys have killer instincts, and I think it took Garrett maybe 18 months to do it. Fine, it happened. It happens to young players. To me, it's JJ Watt. To me, Aberg is closer to JJ Watt.
This is making TC's blood boil.
As far as that's why I prefaced it. As far as as far as rep to rep consistency, immediately good, gonna have an illustrious career. It's gonna be the best for a handful of years. Immediately competition and and immediately compete for things.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just don't think Ludvig has any sort of like self-promoting thirstiness in his body. Like I don't think he has that bone in his body. Whereas I mean, like the thing that JD just said the other day of like, like I'm ready and able. I'm willing to come back. Like it's like, yo, I don't think D'Amico is calling you, dog. Like you're just trying to stay in the news cycle. It's
be like if the Cliques finally built up their squad like years down the road, and then Ludvig was like, I could play for the Cliques. TC would be so devastated. It's just you can't raise your hand at the end of the road here.
TC, do you feel like Patrick Cantlay's tweet yesterday on Sunday was JJ Watt behavior, just activating after a not competing?
I felt like that was more. I'm trying to think who
that was Mr. Unlimited, I think.
Yeah, like somebody who's clearly got their agent, tweeting stuff out for them and just making it to where they're just trying to
can't let country, let's ride.
Here and they don't
can't let country, baby.
On the account,
I am so pro JJ Watt. I really like JJ Watt, and it's been a journey for me. But I think he's way more self-aware, like than maybe I thought a decade ago. I actually like him. I think
it's like I legitimately like don't have any big issues with him. I just think he's thirsty, right? Which, listen, some people are thirsty.
I would argue the vast majority of athletes in media are thirsty. The vast majority. Like the amount of guys, I'm not talking about JJ Watt. I've met JJ Watt less than 10 times in my life. Like the amount of guys who like you've heard of who will be like, hey, can you like retweet my last tweet? Like guys who like made like 5 Pro Bowls and they'll be in my DMs being like, can I come on your show? Like, and it's not me. It's not nothing to do with me. It's just like these guys just want to be out there. The moment it's like the old David Stern thing with what Bill Simmons said, where it's like he wanted to be commissioner forever because he just wanted people to return their calls. Like there's a lot of people. It's not a JJ Watt point, but it's an athlete point. The amount of people who just stop caring about you, especially in football, because you don't get recognized necessarily. Yeah. Like the second receiver on a team is not like Stephon Diggs is going to be recognized for a long time. Will Gabe Davis in 10 years? Like how many weeks will Gabe Davis go like walking around where someone's not going to be like, hey, Gabe Davis. But right now in Jacksonville and Buffalo, he can walk around and get recognized. So I just think that I think there's more thirst than you think, TC, in the world.
That's fair. I think personally, I'm a big Jags fan. Gabe Davis could walk around Jacksonville right now. Nobody would know who he was. So
see golf. We got to look in on that. By the way, did you see Jalen Ramsey set his 3rd round of golf ever the other day? I think he shot a 94. He played with Tua.
Wow.
We got to get eyes on that.
What team? I mean, come on.
Tua. I think Tua shot an 83, and I think Tua's pretty good. So he must.
They could have been in like the Palm Beach Par 3 or something.
That's true. We look. Offers open for JJ to come on Film Room with us.
I am monitoring. All right, this one. So I actually sent a text to a couple people who were in NFL media because I got so mad on Thursday when Hideki Matsuyama withdrew after an injury. Who is the football comp to Hideki Matsuyama? Because I was explaining to someone who only plays who's a fantasy football guy because he was on a group chat that like it's the equivalent of Joe Burrow just ruling himself out at 1:05 p.m. Like once a year, just being like when everybody's in on him, like we love Joe Burrow's metrics, and then Joe being like, I have a back. And then this is a different wrinkle. I remember when he withdrew from the Pirates a couple years ago, Pat Mayo was like, oh yeah, apparently he was talking about this all week in the Japanese media. And it's like, what? That would have been nice to know.
Yeah, I got one for you, Kev. I can guarantee this is the first time in the history of podcasting that this has ever been made, this dumb comparison. Hideki is former Colts safety Bob Sanders. Just an absolute menace when he is out there but like constantly injured. Like body is just breaking down. You always think like, oh, is Bob going to play this week? Oh, he's not? Well, thanks for ruling him out 20 minutes before kickoff.
But also, like in 10 years, we're gonna be watching YouTube shorts. That are like,
oh man,
Hideki was a problem. Yeah. Hideki was a problem. Look at that iron play.
Yes.
But the one thing I'll say, KBV, Bob Sanders was a product of his own viciousness on the field. Like he went in head first, and then he got hurt because of it. I don't think does Hideki's swing put pressure on his back? Maybe.
Well, he did apparently stop the pause at the top of the swing because it was sort of putting more pressure on his back. He was trying to kind of ease like a transition. So I think there's some like did it to myself.
Love that Bob Sanders. I love that Bob Sanders. TC, what do you got?
I was gonna go with JJ Watt. It's truly hurt. Are you hurt or are you injured? You know, you're talking about like he's talking about it with the Japanese media. He's JJ's certainly talking about it with the Houston media.
On a text with Rahm. He's probably telling Rahm all the time.
Yeah. So, you know, I had that or I had Jimmy G. Of just like, there's just always something going on.
Jimmy's pretty good. I asked somebody in football media, I was like, who's the comp for Hideki? And they said, for the absolute fury that they give me, it's Kadarius Toney. Just like constantly, just like, what are you doing? Just from just how much they make their blood boil because if you play fantasy, you have to rely on Kadarius Toney sometimes. I guess I didn't know that. That's why I don't play fantasy football because apparently you have to rely sometimes on Kadarius Toney. Hideki Matsuyama, I've bet and lost so much money on Hideki Matsuyama.
Yeah, but Hideki, I mean, I think Kadarius Toney, like I would say Kadarius Toney would be like Billy Horschel. I'm like, yo, Billy, like,
of course,
just chill out, like just stop talking. Both of them, you know. They went to Florida, all that, but you're just like, yo, just stop talking for a little bit or just stop doing that stuff and just
here's how you know
play well.
Here's how you know my kids are golf sickos, Kev, is they know who Billy Horschel is, but I had to explain to them who Kadarius Toney was when Taylor Swift wrote that diss lyric about him.
There you go. I thought Kadarius Toney was good because he played against Miami and had us in hell, and it turns out it was just Miami and Manny Diaz that sucked, which is a classic problem.
True.
I will say this about Hideki, which is that he is a prime example of why I don't bet on football ever or play fantasy football, because I've always said I only bet on gambling and then combat sports when the spirit moves me. But I get so mad at a Hideki Matsuyama or a Xander Schauffele or any of these guys who let me down when they shouldn't. Hideki in particular because of the injury stuff. I couldn't imagine that being like Bobby Wagner. I could not imagine having to like go into a locker room because if I saw Hideki Matsuyama at an airport, I would have to like leave. I would have to like go the other way and be like, I'm not going to go talk to Hideki Matsuyama right now. And so I have to keep it totally professional. I don't bet on football because of the way I feel about Hideki Matsuyama. So there you go. That was a lesson. All right, wild card. You have the floor for anything, KVV. You can take it anywhere. What do you got?
I mean, I'm stealing from this when we did it earlier, but I thought a fun one was Dan Marino and Greg Norman. Kind of defined more for what they didn't do than what they did. Like all-time great, super talented dudes. For some reason, couldn't put it together like in big moments. Both terrible on TV. Both kind of way too tan throughout their lives. Florida guys, just despite having come from somewhere else. I feel like it lines up.
That is amazing. I did not think about that. Dan at least has been smart enough to just be Dan Marino in retirement.
Yes,
that's all he does. Like he tried to be a Dolphins executive for 5 days and then didn't like. If you believe the stories, he just didn't like how much work went into it. Yeah, just a couple stories of him just being like, "We have to do what now?" Greg Norman is maybe bitten off more than he can chew in that regard. But that's a good, like my thing is if you're just famous, you should just bank on that. Like Dan Marino can make tons of money being Dan Marino for the rest of his life. Just do that. Don't start a rival football league.
My other one, I made this one up just for TC, which is that Patrick Cantlay is like Dak Prescott, a regular season, just fluffer with a kind of a weird hairline, looks 10 years older than he really is. Postseason record is abysmal. The Cowboys fans have been coming at us ever since TC called Dak a compiler, but we really had the last laugh when Dak turned in that stink performance against the Packers.
That was the best.
I think there's so many guys who are like Dak. I think there's a lot because it's just guys who consistently top 10 and then they just don't get there. And there's like 8 of those guys on the tour consistently who are always in the mix and can't actually be a killer when it matters. TC, what do you got?
I've got Phil on the brain just because it's PGA
Absolutely.
Championship week and he won out of nowhere a few years ago at Kiowa. And I'm going to steal from KVV on what he said. We had Phil as Brett Favre. One of our things of like kind of a gunslinger mentality, hitting it all over the yard, just
lucky to stay out of prison,
yeah, and then kind of disgraced himself later in his career or post-career, just saying all sorts of wild stuff, all sorts of flings here and there that we may or may not have known about.
Some big time gags under pressure, over some very historic gags.
God, honestly, the microscope of several, attorney generals could be, looking at them. So.
The other thing, so Brett Favre turned out to not be good at this, but the other thing was that throughout their career, everybody thought they were going to be the next great broadcaster. KVV, do you remember everybody was like, oh, Favre, he's going to go walk right into the M&F booth. Turns out there wasn't much going on with Brett Favre upstairs. And then the other thing is he did end up auditioning for Monday Night Football, a couple of other things. I remember he was so bad. I remember he's lucky he never got one of those high profile jobs because he would have been awful. He would have been Emmitt Smith times 100.
I remember though, I think Mickelson would be really good.
I agree with that.
He's just disqualified himself from Whereas Favre's like Drew Brees, where it's like, no, you're so bad. We're just going to buy out the rest of your contract and walk away, please. That's like Zach Johnson. That's how Zach Johnson would be if he was in the
booth. There was some internet thing that Favre was doing. Some company paid him to do it. And I'll never forget, he's doing the 2013 draft. And I was watching it just to see. Brett Favre was my favorite athlete growing up. Because when you're a kid, it's he goes down the field. And then all this stuff that was just, it aged so horribly. I remember, I believe it was against the Titans. He clearly had a concussion. And he put himself back in the game. And celebrating, was getting the crowd going, and he threw a touchdown, and the announcer was going wild, being like, "Oh, but no, big hit can stop Brett Favre." And it was just now it would have been a 3-week Good Morning America level scandal, and then it was 2003. It wasn't 1995. But anyway, 2013 draft, and Brett Favre. It's been obviously 12 years since I remember seeing it, but I vividly remember him saying something like, Deion Jordan, 3rd pick in the draft, big body defensive end out of Oregon. So we'll see. And that was it. That was his analysis.
That might be the most prescient thing he ever said, though. Considering Deion Jordan's career.
So we'll see.
We'll see. Maybe he knew something we didn't.
We'll see. All right, I got one. Xander Schauffele is the entire Chargers franchise, just the entire history, start to finish. Because I was thinking about it and I was like, he's a little bit like Herbert, but then he's a little bit like the Chargers team where everybody falls in love with him. He's never shown any ability to be a dog when it matters. And then I'm thinking he's also like the Phillip Rivers, LaDainian Tomlinson teams that every year we'd say, well, this is the team. So he's like the entire franchise. Every year, this is the team that gets over the hump. And then they'd play some just okay Patriots team, and the Patriots team would win by 2 scores. And we just see that over and over and over again. A couple of years ago, everybody's talking about how they climbed the mountain against the Chiefs. Didn't matter. The Chiefs, when it came time, when everybody has to play their best, they can never do it, TC.
I like that. Xander as Herbert was one of the reasons we even did the podcast in the first place, because Saleh, our co-host, was saying that others were like Herbert. I was like, no, you're giving. No. I think he said Xander was like Burrow. I was like, no, you're not. You're Burrow's a killer. Burrow's a winner. He's just, A, he's playing for the Bengals, and B, he's had some injury stuff. But, whereas Xander's just consistently coming in second. He's got 20-something runner-ups now.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's insane. I don't know. I don't think Burrow has necessarily a comp because him playing for the Bengals handicaps him. The Bengals really are. The Bengals have modernized very, very recently. They got a practice facility, indoor practice facility, a year ago. I don't think it's still built. It's a completely different. They're not going to pay they're not even thinking about paying T. Higgins. They haven't. Mike Brown hasn't talked to T. Higgins in a year. It's not a thing. Everybody else is moving money around. So Burrow's a tough comp, but Burrow's also the other thing about Burrow. TC, you know this. Burrow's also a culture changer, which doesn't matter necessarily in golf. You don't need to change a culture of yourself.
I think Burrow could be, I know he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. And I think sometimes we get tied up with this, who's won a Super Bowl and who hasn't with golfers. But I think I think Spieth is probably the closest comp to Burrow of like plays above and beyond what his physical talent is and should be, or there's just something else there that the guy's just a freaking winner and culture guy and glue guy, and like you want Spieth on your Ryder Cup team,
My comp on the Fried Egg Pod months ago was Spieth was the Seattle Seahawks. Just wild variances
Never played a normal
in play.
game in their entire life.
Yes, but more importantly, like if you in 2014 had said no more majors, no more Super Bowls, you'd be like, what? Like how?
Yeah.
Like did he like get injured? No. What? Okay. Did he like change his game? No. What happened? He just got really unlucky a bunch of times, and just like the amount, if you just look at the last 7 years with Spieth and the last decade with the Seahawks with the Pete Carroll, I think if you just had a snapshot of a moment of time going forward, you'd think they underachieved.
Yeah.
That could be
despite
Rory too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely. Definitely. But Spieth's a little more.
Yeah.
Like the one thing I'll say about Spieth is like there will be shots like if you just watch the Tourcast and you saw like a certain trajectory of 4 shots and you said who is this, you would say Jordan Spieth. You would just be like, oh, this is Spieth going.
It's like
going
Spieth
here. And
or
also
like Sahith is like the kind of the heir apparent there. Like how did you possibly hit it there, man?
Like it looks like it's literally not even a landing zone, and somehow like it says stroke 3 is right here.
Yeah, it's like, truly off. Like it's off the planet, and it keeps going once off screen.
What are we gonna say, KVB?
Just the funniest thing in all this when we were doing these comps is that I threw out like that Tom Brady is Jack Nicklaus. Mr. said like he's so good for so long, was honestly kind of annoying, doesn't have like that flashy stuff, just kind of waited for other guys to fold under pressure while he's consistently like excellent.
That's pretty good.
And it made so many Patriots fans like so annoyed. They were like, no, he's Tiger Woods. He's Tiger Woods. And I was like, are you really getting angry that you're being compared to Jack friggin' Nicklaus? Like this is such a silly like thing to get upset about, but they were just so devoted into I think Mahomes is like prime Tiger Woods. Like even if you say he's not the GOAT yet, like it's probably the GOAT, just he doesn't need the stats to necessarily like put him hanging on that label on him. And they also both like wearing sunglasses to work. So
I agree. But I also say like
yes,
the Tiger thing, the Mahomes thing to me, I also compare Mahomes to Jordan, but the Tiger thing is the same way. In that I think Mahomes is going to shape the destiny and the narrative of every other quarterback that were his contemporaries, which is what Tiger did. Like how many guys needed to be young enough to wait for Tiger to fall off? Like there's a bunch of majors that would have been completely rewritten where it's like LeBron, the reason I compared it to Jordan, like LeBron, who didn't get a ring in this era? Like LeBron let guys in, and Jordan didn't. I think that's the difference. So that's my
Tiger and Mahomes are kind of corny deep down. Like they're just ton of nerdy dudes who happen to be like exceptional athletes.
Maybe some troubling parental figures.
Kev, you knew what we bargained for when you brought us on here, that we were gonna push the envelope here on some of this.
Pat Mahomes Sr. tells great anecdotes. I'll leave it at that. I'm pro Pat Mahomes Sr. because he tells great anecdotes about his son.
So did Earl. Under the tree. Earl used to tell some great stories.
He's actually got some Earls. Not like it's obvious. I think there's a different makeup of just their relationship, but like he's got great stories about how Mahomes, like they used to play in the backyard and then they had to go find a bigger field and then a bigger field and a bigger field until they were eventually just on like a baseball field and he was just throwing the ball over the fence. Like he's got some great cinematic stories, kind of like what Earl had in 1999 2000, where he would just Rick Riley would call and Earl would say, here we go, here's 5 great anecdotes. All right, this was a blast. Everybody check out the No Laying Up alternate cast this week. I will be locked in. I'll be watching it from the minute it comes on until it ends. Anything you guys are particularly excited about, TC, this weekend?
That's a great question. I'm excited to just see, I think for the first time in a while, the golf tournament and the players are going to be the star versus normal, like, the last few iterations of majors, we've had kind of golf courses that are the star. And I think, that's kind of the theme of this season with Troon, with Valhalla, and with Pinehurst. And especially at Troon, like last time they were at Troon, they got unbelievable finish with Phil and Stenson. And I think Valhalla, you look at the last few times that the PGA has been there, it's been It's been some of the best, finish and competition we've ever had in the history of major championship golf. So hoping we get more of that this week.
Kev?
I'm excited to see Brooks Koepka. I predicted as a joke when he won Bellerive that he was going to win like 7 PGAs. And if he like shows up and wins this PGA, like it might truly be like, hey, Brooks should be the favorite at every single PGA forever. Like as long as he's healthy, he's the dude. It just sets up to be his style of golf. Like not quite US Open, but also kind of US Open adjacent. Like the PGA's become that in recent weeks. Like it's recent years. I think I can't, my heart is still with Brooks. I kind of love his just general like cantankerous attitude and like finding constant things to be aggrieved about and not ever really fully embracing Liv, which like makes Liv's fans like completely angry and in denial about, he wears a Nike hat just because he got a contract, not because he doesn't like the crusher or the aces dog. Like that's not what it is. And so it just makes me laugh every time Brooks succeeds and doesn't quite like, no, I'm not going to call Greg Norman. I'm going to call my wife.
His ability to acquire money without doing a lot. Like a lot of these guys are so corporate, and it's like I want to thank the partners, and like you see this a lot with F1 drivers, with golfers, and Brooks Koepka is just like, give me a lot of money, and I'm just not going to be that corporate about it. There's an ethos there that I really respect. So there you go. All right, TC, KVV, thank you so much. We will we'll see you later this week.
Cheers,
Kevin. Thank you.